had to wear my like green shirt when filming this because Jade City, come on. Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian, I'm Ian the Reader, and today I've got another book review for you, this time of a very exciting new release that I was so pumped to be reading, and that is The Jade Setter of Janloon by Fonda Lee. Now, if you don't know anything about this book, this is a prequel novella to my favorite trilogy ever, probably, and that is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. First book is Jade City, which I'll put here. Second book is Jade War, and then the third book, of course, is Jade Legacy, which was my favorite book of last year, which is a very popular opinion. I'm pretty sure it was like almost everyone who read it's favorite book of last year because it was an incredible conclusion to that trilogy. But I thought that that was the end of it until Fonda Lee announced that she had a novella coming out called The Jade Setter of Janloon, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought she was done with the series, and then we got this extra story. If you don't know anything about the Greenbone Saga, where have you been? Because this series is everywhere. But just to give a little bit of a recap of what this world is about, essentially in Jade City, we find ourselves in a world very similar to our own. It is urban fantasy, but none of the locations are going to have the same name as actual places in our world, but they're very much inspired by different countries and different regions and things like that. The world is very similar to our own, but the biggest difference is the inclusion of jade abilities. So essentially, people who are jade sensitive can wear jade on their body and it gives them enhanced abilities. Essentially, Fonda Lee wanted to write a book series with kind of the kung fu abilities that you see in all these martial arts action movies, but give a reason why they're able to do these like crazy stunts. And so she included these jade abilities, and that's kind of the explanation for the reason they're able to do all this stuff. But in this world, the society is not run by, but overseen by these clans who have power and control over the usage of jade, the distribution of jade, and things like that. Essentially, this is a fantasy version of The Godfather, where you have these different clans or like mafia gangs, and they're shady people, but there's all of this rivalry going on between the clans and all these politics and things like that. And in the main trilogy, you see the rise of this new generation in one of the clans called the No Peak clan, and the opposition that they face from their foe, the Mountain clan. Totally forgot to mention the fact that I have a whole video talking about the 5 reasons why you should definitely read the Greenbone Saga. I'll go ahead and leave a link to that video down below, and while you're there, you know, the like button, subscribe button, just do whatever feels right. So that is kind of what the original trilogy is about. Let's talk about this novella though. This is a prequel novella that takes place 2 years before the start of Jade City. So you're gonna see some characters in this story that are very familiar to you because they are main characters in the original trilogy. But you're also gonna see some characters that are either mentioned or are just like side characters in the original trilogy because of the time period that this book is taking place. We follow our main character named Pulo, who is a young man who is apprenticed to a jade setter, who is essentially a craftsman who takes jade stones and fashions them into different things that jade warriors can wear. So like a necklace or a watch or a weapon. Pulo has kind of been thrust into this apprenticeship without his really desiring to be a part of it. That being said, he also does recognize that it is a very marketable talent that he has, and that he has the ability to step aside from this apprenticeship and kind of start out on his own. And so as the story begins, he's kind of torn between what he wants to do with his apprenticeship because of the fact that the jade setter that he is apprenticed to has no allegiance to any specific clan. How the politics of this world works is there are the 2 major clans, No Peak and Mountain Clan, and then there are a lot of smaller clans that fall under one of the jurisdiction or align with one of the 2 major clans. But this Jade Setter has chosen not to align so that he can work for a lot of different clans without having to be loyal to one specific group of people. In this story, the Jade Setter and his apprentice have been entrusted with a very valuable item to one of the very prominent Greenbone warriors or political leadership figures, and they're supposed to be working on it, but it is stolen. And so this is kind of a mystery story, to be honest, of them trying to figure out, okay, who stole this thing? Where did they put it? How are we going to get it back? And so that is the general setup of what this book is about. So now that we've talked about what this story is about, let's go ahead and talk about what impressed me in this novella. And oh my goodness, it was just so nice to be back in this world. That's the number one thing. Like, everything else is really good too, but having loved and lived through the original Greenbone Saga trilogy and thinking that that was it, getting to step back into this world and get a different perspective, but also just be refreshed by the return of all these things that I love, like being in KCON again, seeing these Jade abilities again, learning about characters that I didn't know things about them. It was just so refreshing. This world is so well fleshed out, even in the confines of this specific novella. It's really impressive the things that Fonda Lee elaborates on and expands upon while taking the smaller scope. This world is absolutely alive, though. Yes, it has those things that are very reminiscent to our world, but this world stands alone. It is truly just a fresh experience. I loved every second of being back in this world, and I truly wish that I had more Jade Setter or Greenbone Saga content to read. The second thing that really impressed me in the story was the new perspective that we gain on the world as a whole and the political system and everything that's going on in it through the eyes of this character and of this smaller clan. So the Greenbone Saga itself is so focused on the giant clans. You've got the No Peak clan and the Mountain clan, and you get perspectives from both. And yeah, there are a few perspectives that are thrown in there of smaller characters or people who aren't loyal to those clans, and that's great. But having a story that was just so focused on this new angle of this world that we've seen, where you get a great look at a smaller clan and what that life is like, the politics that go behind being aligned with one of these giant clans, and the dangers that come with it as well. It was just so rewarding to get to read that, and it was very eye-opening as well, because you think so much about, you know, how the things that these people are doing in the main trilogy impact them and their clans, but you don't think so much about how they impact the smaller clans and these other people who have just regular lives and regular jobs and just want to survive in this world that is run by these dangerous gangs. It was really eye-opening. I truly enjoyed that angle on it, and also just kind of getting to see how the clans excuse themselves, I guess. You know, it's all about the clans, and it's all about what's going to give them more power and more of an angle over, or like a leverage on the other clans, and you lose the morality a little bit. I mean, that's one of the big things of the main trilogy, and then one of the things that I love so much about it is these morally great characters who do some really shady stuff to benefit their family and their motivations and things like that. But with this, you kind of see it from the other side. You see somebody who is viewing what the clan is doing and the excuses that they're making and the things that they're allowing to be covered up because they're these big clans. And it was just a really cool experience getting to see that, and it also just kind of changed my perspective on some of the characters that maybe I didn't like so much. Maybe I liked them a little bit more, and some of the characters that I like more, maybe I like them less. It was just really a good time, and on top of that, it was a really interesting perspective to be added to the Greenbone Saga, and partly, like, I kind of want to reread, I mean, I always want to reread this series, but I want to reread it having this new, fresh perspective on this world. And the third thing that really impressed me about this book is the characters. This is not a long book. I think the audiobook is only like 4 hours long, but you get a lot of new characters in this story, and all of them feel super fleshed out, super engaging. They all have their own arcs and their own backstories that you find out more about throughout the story, and I thought that that was just super well handled. Even the main character, because I've seen some reviews that kind of complain about the fact that this main character isn't very active in the story, but in some ways I feel like he kind of acts as a reflection of the society, because there are these big things going on with characters in this story, and then you have your main character who is watching what's going on, maybe has a little bit of an impact on it, but doesn't necessarily have a key role to play in what actually takes place in the climax of the story. And that's kind of the same thing that happens with these smaller clans. He kind of represents the smaller clans and their relationship to the bigger clans, in that he's watching everything going on, and he has some role to play while not being necessarily center stage for what's actually going on and really, really matters. I really enjoyed Pulo as a main character, though. In addition to that, the side characters and the relationships that he has with them, I thought that they were really well handled. Really, it was so well executed. I'm always ever impressed by Fonda Lee and her ability to utilize the pages that she has to do so much. And that's the thing, like, this is not an ambitious story, and that's the one thing that I feel like I can truly say about the Greenbone Saga and the original trilogy. It is very ambitious. You get this huge picture of not only this continent, but like this world and the politics and the history and the legacy that they're building in that series. And this is very much a smaller story, but it has a key role to play in what goes on in the main trilogy. It gives you just more open eyes, I feel like, to what's actually going on and the impact of the things that happen. So now that we've talked about the things that impressed me, let's go ahead and talk about the things that disappointed me about this novella. First of all, it was too short. That's it. No, but really, I mean, it wasn't too short. It definitely accomplished everything that it set out to do at the start, and it was as long as it needed to be, but I just want more. I want more. This world and this series and these characters are so good. Like, you know, you've got these authors who really milk a series, and they just like keep coming out with books and you're like, oh my gosh, another book in this series or whatever, and they just keep going and going and going. But Fonda Lee has said in interviews that she really doesn't have a lot more stories to tell in this world, and I'm like, come on, give me more, please. But no, I mean, I don't have any complaints about this. It was, in my eyes, like a perfect novella. It did exactly what it wanted to do. It impacted the main trilogy, not in like a major way, but more in our view of it. Not necessarily like the plot aspects, but just the things that happen and the context that it provides to the main trilogy is just spectacular. I loved it. Now we're going to talk about my rating and recommendation. So as far as my recommendation goes, obviously I recommend this novella. That being said, when to read it. So I don't know. That's tough. So you can technically read this whenever you want. You could start your journey with the Greenbone Saga with the Jade Setter of Janloon. You could read it after book 1 or book 2, or after you've read the whole trilogy like I did. If I had to nail down my recommendation for when to read this, personally, I think the best time to read it is after book 1. You can read it at any point, like I said, but this story does a good job of explaining the world as much as it needs to. You know, it covers what Jade is all about, what it can do, and the major clans, and kind of the relationships that exist there. But I think that having the perspective of Jade City, having read that, and kind of understanding the inner workings of these relationships, and then jumping into this, you don't have to worry so much about trying to pick up on every little detail of the tension between these two clans, because you already know, and then you can focus on everything else the story is doing. So I think personally I would recommend reading Jade City first, and then you can read this, and then read Jade War and Jade Legacy, or you can read it at the end. I really enjoyed getting to have another moment with these characters that I really loved. Not all of my favorites were there, which is fine, but I really enjoyed this new moment with them. That being said, I think the best place to read it personally is right after Jade City. And of course, my rating for this book is 5 stars. I don't know if I've ever rated a novella 5 stars. Actually, that's not true. I rated The Emperor's Soul, I think, by Brandon Sanderson 5 stars. But this is a 5-star for me. Like, I had a blast. I love this world. I love these characters. I loved everything about this. It was fantastic. This gets a glowing recommendation for me. Read it. You better. But thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you love the Greenbone Saga as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!